All right, guys, I know I'm probably a little late to the party, but the new Chase Sapphire Reserve update has been confirmed. And while we all thought the rumors were too good to be true, they actually might not have been good enough. But in the end, this update might not be all it's cracked up to be. So let's go through it together. I'll give you my opinion on it and where I stand and what I think this might do for the entire credit card industry, as well as where this new Chase Sapphire Reserve will sit amongst the other premium travel credit cards like the Venture X and the Amex Platinum. But first off, just wanted to give a huge shout out to all you guys. Thank you so much. I've recently crossed 100 subscribers, and that was a huge goal of mine. And it's just awesome to see that people are enjoying my videos. People are hopefully learning something and enjoying watching my credit card journey along the way. So if you're interested in learning more about credit cards, personal finance, and or just want to see my credit card journey with me, go ahead and subscribe and drop a like. That would go a huge way to support this channel, so I really appreciate it. But anyway, since I'm already kind of late to this Chase Sapphire Reserve party anyway, although my rumor videos are still up and those are still pretty good if you want to look at those, let's go ahead and not waste any more time and jump right into those changes, and I'll let you know what I think about it. So first of all, let's cover the elephant in the room and talk about the annual fee. The annual fee will be going from the middle of the pack when it comes to premium travel cards of $550 to a $795 annual fee, and the authorized user fee will go from $75 to $195. At the surface, this obviously seems like a huge negative change because who wants to pay more money just to hold a credit card? And on a top line basis, it absolutely is and will force you to work even harder to get a positive value on that annual fee. However, as we start to go through some of these credits and benefits that are offered on this updated card, you might see that for the time being at least, it actually might be a little bit easier to get value on it than it was before. But that $795 annual fee is no joke, and it now makes the Chase Sapphire Reserve the most expensive of the premium travel cards. At least until Amex updates the Platinum card, which they already have confirmed that they will. Definitely trying to steal a little of the thunder from the Chase Sapphire Reserve, but as long as companies are competing, we're winning, so I'm okay with it. But for the time being, this $795 annual fee will be the highest annual fee, so let's get into how we're going to make some of that value back. First off, let's cover the changes to the spending multipliers because there actually are some really big changes here, and I think a lot of people are going to be kind of upset about it. First off, the biggest change to these upper multipliers here is that instead of offering 10x back on hotels and 5x back on flights booked through the Chase Sapphire portal, there's now going to be a flat 8x back on all purchases made through the portal. For some, this might be a negative, especially if you liked booking your hotels through the Chase Sapphire portal with cash. But I think for the vast majority of people, this is either going to be a positive or a relatively neutral thing. So honestly, not too big of a deal here. The biggest change to a daily multiplier that is probably going to rub people the wrong way is they are getting rid of the 3x multiplier on all other travel purchases. While I don't have the card myself, I know this was a huge selling point of the card, and I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be upset about it, but they are adding something to compensate for that a little bit. Instead of the 3x on all other travel purchases, which include things like ride shares, taxis, subways, things like that, they will be adding a 4x points back on flights and hotels booked directly instead. Now, for someone like me who doesn't ride share all that often, doesn't take taxis, and doesn't live in a city with a subway, this actually is a positive change because I will be using the flights and hotel portion of this a lot more than I would be using those other categories. So if you're like me, this is actually a very positive change, but I know for a fact that a lot of people use this for all sorts of travel purchases, including parking and everything like that. So you will no longer be getting 3x on that, which is a huge downside if you're one of those people. And to round it out, in classic Chase fashion, they will be keeping the 3x points worldwide dining, which Chase likes to do because they love to have people use their credit cards at restaurants. I won't lie, putting a nice metal credit card on that bill obviously does feel nice. And 3x back is a respectable earning rate, so I'm glad they're keeping it. There are other options that offer more, either in cashback setups, or if you wanted to go for points, you can use the Amex Gold card, but 3x back isn't bad. And if you already have the Chase Sapphire Reserve, you were probably using it for this purpose anyway, so at least it's sticking around. But with the multipliers out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the real meat and potatoes of how most people are going to be earning their money back from the annual fee. First off, the biggest question that many of us had was, would the $300 annual travel credit be going away? With all these other credits that I'm going to be talking about, it seemed like it was probably going to be too good to be true if it was going to stick around. But I'm happy to say that they are in fact keeping that $300 travel credit, which almost cuts that annual fee in half right off the rip, and we're not even getting into the new credits, which is awesome. For most people, this $300 travel credit is super easy to use. For example, if you are using it for those taxis, ride shares, parking, stuff like that, This credit counts for that, and it is an annual credit, so you have an entire year to get that $300 value. And I think it's pretty safe to say that I at least would count that at its full $300 value. Not to mention with the next credit that I'm about to talk about, stacking this $300 credit on top would make it really, really easy to use. So with that $300, we now only have to eat through another $495 to go, which is still a lot. I mean, it's more than the Capital One Venture X entire annual fee, but there are a lot of credits to go. So let's talk about those new credits and see where we can get some value. First off, they are adding a up to $500 annual credit for their Edit Collection, which is a group of hotels similar to Fine Hotels and Resorts through Amex that is bookable through the Chase Travel Portal. This is a credit that is worth up to $500, given to you as $250 biannual credits, meaning you have $250 from January to the end of June, and then you have another $250 from July to the end of December. Now, with this credit alone, we can already see the direction that Chase is going, as well as other issuers in coupon booking their credit cards. This is a tactic that seemingly exploded with popularity with cards like the Amex Gold and the Amex Platinum. And if you're in the game, you already know how annoying these credits can be, but there is a bright side to it. With this credit and other credits on this card that we'll talk about, at least they are biannual instead of monthly. They definitely aren't as simple as a nice annual credit that can help cover your annual fee throughout the entire year. And to get the full value, it does require that you stay at relatively expensive hotels at least twice a year. But since this is a biannual credit instead of a monthly credit, at the very least, if you only stay once a year, you can get half that value, so $250. There are some strings attached to it. It obviously does have to be an Edit hotel, which, like I said, are the more expensive hotels, and it has to be a minimum of a 2-night prepaid stay. I'll tell you right now, the hotels in this Edit collection will not be able to be booked for 2 nights at $250. So this is really just a way for Chase to incentivize you to spend money in their portal. However, if you were planning on staying at a nicer hotel anyway, you can book a hotel through the Edit, get those additional perks and benefits that come with the Edit collection, and get $250 off of it at the same time. For me personally, I absolutely can see myself using this credit at least once a year, so I will conservatively put this credit valued at $250, and I think that is more than fair. And plus, you can stack this $250 with the $300 general travel credit and get more like $550 off that hotel stay. So with just these 2 credits alone, I'm already at $550, which was the old annual fee, but we do still have another $245 to make up. So let's go on to the next credit and see if we can make that happen. But if you were to value that hotel credit at its full $500 value, you're already sitting at $800 and have made up your annual fee with just 2 credits alone. Personally, I'm going to take the conservative end of that and stick to my $550 value for now, but there are a lot more credits to go, so let's get into it. The next credit to talk about here is an up to $300 annual dining credit. And again, this one is divided into $150 every 6 months. But this dining credit isn't as flexible as the $300 travel credit and only works through Sapphire Reserve exclusives through OpenTable. Doing some limited research into this program, it looks like these are only available in big cities as of now. So if you're out in suburbia, you might be out of luck. But frankly, this is a travel card anyway, and if you're not traveling to a city at least once a year, then you probably shouldn't get this card in the first place. For me personally, I live in the Denver area, and there are a few restaurants on this platform that I would really like to try, but they are all on the more expensive end of things, so I don't want to assign the full $300 value to this credit. However, it is nice that this is kind of unlocking some experiences that I normally wouldn't be able to do, and quite frankly, I think Marley will like it too, so I do have to assign some value to this credit. And once again, I'll apply a extremely conservative valuation on this credit, knocking it down to half price because I know I'll use it at least once a year and get good value from it. So that adds $150 to the total so far, putting me at a total of $700. So we only have $95 more to go. And for those of you keeping track at home, if you've valued every credit to its full value so far, you're already sitting at a nice $1,100, and we're not even halfway done. The next credit I want to talk about is kind of an interesting one that I didn't know how to feel about at first, but now I think I've come to a pretty solid conclusion on. This credit is an up to $300 annual StubHub credit that is again given to you as $150 every 6 months. At first, I thought this credit was pretty weird because this is by far the most lifestyle credit that this card has, as opposed to a classic travel and dining card. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this credit is actually really awesome for me. Like I said, I live in the Denver area, and I am a huge Denver sports fan. That's the Nuggets championship champagne there, if you can see, and I'm also a huge Broncos and Avs fan. Not to mention I at least go to like a concert a year or so, so I will have no problem at all getting full value from this credit. So honestly, I think this will be the second credit that I value at its full value, bringing me to a total of $1,000, knocking out that annual fee and honestly getting pretty close to the annual fee plus an authorized user fee as well. And again, for those of you keeping track at home, we're up to $1,400 and counting. In my opinion, these credits are by far the main credits that you can get value back on these cards, but there are still a few more to talk about, so let's get into it. The next credit I think is the most worth talking about is a $250 annual value through complimentary subscriptions to Apple TV and Apple Music. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of Apple TV, so I don't really want to assign any value to that. And I also don't listen to Apple Music. However, I do use Spotify, and I can easily switch that to Apple Music, cancel my Spotify subscription, and get for Apple Music for free. So because of that, I'm going to value this credit right around $100 a year for allowing me to cancel my Spotify and get free music. This now puts me at $1,100, which not only covers the annual fee, but also an authorized user fee as well. And that brings this total potential value up to something like $1,650 now, which I've kind of lost track, but I guess that's kind of the point, because they're just offering so many credits that even if you only value each at half off, you're still getting enough value to cover that annual fee. This card also comes with a free DoorDash membership valued at $120 annually if you already have DoorDash. I don't, so I don't really put any value on this, but it is still nice to get some stuff delivered, and they also come with up to $300 in DoorDash credits, so I'll absolutely get some value out of that. So I'll conservatively put this potential $420 value right around $50 for me, something like that, which for me just knocks my value up even more to $1,150, and the total potential value is just getting ridiculous now, so I'm not even keeping track of it anymore. On top of that, you also can get up to $120 in Lyft credits as $10 a month, and up to $120 in annual statements toward a Peloton membership. Both of these credits I also don't really use that much. The Lyft one I might use from time to time, so I'll assign $20 to that. This puts me at a very, very conservative estimate on value of $1,170. And if you don't have global entry or TSA PreCheck already, this card comes with a $120 global entry, TSA PreCheck, or Nexus credit every 4 years as well. And a huge hot button issue right now with the nerf of the Capital One Venture X. As of now, this card still allows you to bring 2 complimentary guests into both Priority Pass memberships and the Chase Sapphire lounges as well. This perk sticking around makes this card by far the best travel card when it comes to guest passes with lounges. With the direction everything is going and how badly lounges have been getting overcrowded, I absolutely see them nerfing this relatively soon, but they haven't done it yet, so for now, it is a great perk and by far a competitive advantage that this card has over others. And that's where my valuation of this card kind of ends, but for those of you who are big spenders, if you spend over $75,000 on this card, you will get IHG One Rewards Diamond Elite status, which I think this is the only card that offers that, so that's actually a pretty good perk. You also get Southwest Airlines A-List status and a $500 Southwest Airlines credit when you book through the Chase portal, which does make sense because of how closely Chase and Southwest have been partnered recently. And on top of that, you get a $250 credit to the Shops at Chase, which is a new Chase online like Sapphire shopping portal that they have. So with all this potential value, even without spending the $75,000 a year, you could potentially get over $2,400 in value for a $795 annual fee. Now, obviously, this only counts if you would actually spend money on these products before, but even if you take a conservative estimate like myself and discount most of them at half price or worse, you can still easily get your annual fee, which is just crazy for a credit card to offer this much value. I definitely don't see this much value sticking for too long just because of how crazy it actually is. But as long as it's there, I absolutely would take advantage of it. I recently got approved for the Chase Sapphire Preferred, so I have to wait the remainder of the year before I can upgrade. Otherwise, I would be applying for this card as soon as the updates happen. But unfortunately, since I just got the Preferred, I will have to wait a year before upgrading that card. But as long as these credits stay the way they are, I will absolutely do that, no questions asked. However, guys, I don't want to get too lost in the excitement of all these new credits because kind of flying under the radar underneath all these big changes is a really negative change in my opinion. And that is that they are taking away the 50% points boost in the Chase Sapphire portal when using the Chase Sapphire Reserve. And speaking of the Chase Sapphire Preferred, they're also taking away the 25% point boost on that as well. However, this change isn't all doom and gloom necessarily because instead of the flat 1.5 cent per point valuation on all purchases through the portal, there are now going to be special deals on certain purchases at certain times, With this change, you can now get up to 2x back on certain hotels like the Edit Collection, as well as certain flights in upper class cabins like first and business class flights. On the flight side specifically, I think this is a pretty negative change because if you were looking to book a first or business class flight, you'd most likely be transferring your points out anyway. And at that point, if you were looking to transfer your points out to get a higher value anyway, then it doesn't do you any good to book that 2x back on the Chase Travel Portal anyway. However, on the hotel side, I think this is actually a pretty positive change because while they are more expensive hotels, which is definitely a negative for a lot of people, most hotel points are worth much less than 1 cent per point. Even Hyatt has an average redemption right around 1.5 cents per point anyway. So if you were able to book a Hyatt through the portal instead, getting 2x back, that's a better deal. Not to mention, this opens the opportunity to book hotels like Hilton Hotels or IHG Hotels at a much better rate than if you were to transfer those to the hotel points themselves. But any purchases made through the portal that don't fall into these bonus multipliers are just going to be a flat 1% per point. So I really wouldn't do that if I was you. But don't worry, guys, any points earned before these changes can still be redeemed at that 1.5 cent per point or 1.25 with the Chase Sapphire Preferred. But what are my final thoughts on this update? I, for one, am extremely bullish on this update. If I hadn't applied for the Chase Sapphire Preferred a couple months ago, I would be applying for the Chase Sapphire Reserve as soon as this update went live. The insane value prop from the credits alone make this card, in my opinion, the best premium travel card, even though I don't have any Chase Sapphire lounges in my area. The fact that I can essentially double the value of my annual fee with just a conservative estimate of what these credits are worth make this by far my favorite keeper card, and I hope it sticks around long enough for me to take advantage of it. Not even to mention the other luxury travel credits and perks that just make this card frankly unbeatable in my opinion. Prior to this update, I was actually starting to get a little bit worried about the overall direction of the marketplace with cards like the Amex Platinum giving us monthly credits that were really hard to make, and credit cards increasing annual fees and overall value going down. Not to mention the huge nerf with the Venture X that is really disappointing to me. Like I said, I live in the Denver area, and the Capital One Lounge in DIA was one of my favorites to go to, as well as bring my girlfriend to for free, and we will no longer have that option. So frankly, the fact that the Chase Sapphire Reserve is taking such a big swing right now at this time might make the decision for me to downgrade the Venture X even easier than it might be already. And to see my full thoughts on the nerf of the Venture X, make sure you guys subscribe. That'll be coming out soon. But it's just kind of crazy to see the contrast of the different direction that these cards are going. The biggest wild card that's still in the mix is the Amex Platinum. As soon as Chase confirmed that they were updating it, Amex, of course, had to try and steal the limelight and announce that they will be updating their cards sometime this year as well. The current value prop on the Amex Platinum is just frankly not quite enough for me to want to get that card at the moment, but I'm really curious to see what the update does and what kind of value they would be offering then, because if it's anything like the Chase Sapphire Reserve, or maybe they add some stuff to try to compete with the Chase Sapphire Reserve, then it might get pretty crazy pretty quick. However, with Amex liking to do the big monthly credits instead of the biannual like the Reserve has, I'm not holding out too much hope, but we'll see what happens. At the very least, I'm sure it'll have a really good welcome offer, so I might take advantage of that. We'll see. But yeah, overall, guys, I think this update to the Chase Sapphire Reserve, while it lasts, is phenomenal. And if you are able to take advantage of these credits, I would absolutely recommend getting this credit card. If you're interested in other credit cards, links, as always, can be found in my description. Any referral bonus that you guys use is a great help to me and the channel, so I really, really appreciate it. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure to leave your thoughts on this update, as well as the overall credit card marketplace, in the comments below. And frankly, I'm just kind of curious what you guys think what this card will do to the marketplace, because to me, it seems like this is a huge competitive advantage for Chase, and when companies compete, we win. So I'm hoping that other companies will follow suit, but we'll see what happens. Make sure you guys leave your thoughts in the comments. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like on the way out, and I'll see you guys next time.